The program is essentially the same as previous years. We're still funding infrastructure grants, still funding Victorian councils only, with a maximum cap of $250,000. Now that can be across both a single project, but also across multiple applications. It's important to understand that we've also introduced a minimum request of $10,000. That's because we still have the Community Safety Fund grants open, and they're grants for under $10,000 for situational sort of small-scale security infrastructure. And also, to be fair, the reporting obligations and the expectations of this program are higher than that program. We have close to $3 million to allocate for the program. And if you do the math, there's only so many $250,000 projects that you can fund within that budget envelope. So we're always interested in having a mix of different types of projects, but also of different sizes that we may be able to accommodate. Sometimes everyone just goes for the maximum amount. The minimum contributions are outlined there on the screen. They haven't changed, from previous years. Consideration will be given to half of that co-contribution being in kind, and the co-contribution can go to items such as consultation, design, project management, and of course the infrastructure itself. We do exclude other state government funding and future maintenance costs as part of that co-contribution. I should say that we also do consider the level of the council contribution in the overall assessment as well, so we do look at that. So what won't we fund? I'll only just touch on a few of these. We won't fund projects that are not community crime prevention focused, so those that are focused on fire safety, water safety, occupational health and safety, road or traffic safety, they're out of scope of the program. We also won't fund security infrastructure for facilities that don't exist or that require major works. So for example, we won't fund lighting or cameras for a new community centre that's being built. Last year we had an application for funding for lighting for a car park that was not yet built, for a sports stadium that wasn't yet built, and so that was deemed ineligible. The program will fund urban design improvements to deter crime and to support mixed and legitimate usage of public spaces. We encourage applications that have a placemaking focus and those that have creative and innovative approaches. What does a climbing wall have to do with crime prevention? So asked Will Coogan in his presentation last year about the Jewel Street Brunswick project. And he then went on to answer that really well in his presentation. And I'd encourage people to have a look at that presentation on the YouTube channel of our website. We know that crimes against people and property in public places are less likely to occur if other people are around. As William White, the famous urbanist, put it, what attracts people, most people it would appear, is other people. And that's very true. Initiatives that promote direct or indirect surveillance through activation or through natural surveillance are strongly encouraged through the program. Improving safe movement and connections is an important part because people feel more comfortable using public spaces that have well-defined routes and clear sight lines. Entrapment is also another strong predictor of perceptions of danger, and the program will support landscaping or other design initiatives to remove entrapment points or blind spots. Now, lighting is also supported through the program and can be an effective crime prevention tool. People often feel safer in well-lit areas where they can see what and who is around them, and it can also increase activity. It also increases the risk of offenders being seen and therefore can have a deterrent effect. Lighting, though, is highly site-specific and it's not always suitable, depending on the circumstances. For example, lighting an area that's unused can be counterproductive. Lighting should preferably be at a height that prevents vandalism. Where lighting's used at a lower level, vandal-proof fittings should be used. We've sometimes seen with some previous projects where in-ground lights, for instance, have been used, that there's been theft or vandalism of those. So that needs to be considered in looking at those types of lighting interventions. We provide further information on lighting on our website, so there's a range of resources. The Safer Design Guidelines has a specific section on lighting. We've also got another document from the West Australian Crime Prevention Office that has more substantive and technical information around lighting that encourage people to look at if you're looking at lighting as an activity. We also can fund small-scale physical security and target hardening projects, such as perimeter fencing, bollards and security window treatments. I would say we have got the Community Safety Fund grants open at the moment, so very small scale projects, I would encourage people to look at that program. That program is open until July the 1st, so consider that for councils, but also in promoting that to other community organisations that you work with. Okay, so what do we see in stronger applications? The strongest applications clearly demonstrate a pressing crime prevention problem or issue. They illustrate the background context, the impact and who will be impacted. When is the problem occurring and where? Context is very important, as we know that the same intervention can have both positive and negative effects depending on the circumstances. Stronger applications also provide evidence from a variety of sources. And in the guidelines, we do provide a number of examples. They could include surveys, community consultation reports, council maintenance records. We also have Victoria Police and the Crime Statistics Agency here today to talk about the information that they can provide around evidence. And we've worked with both of those agencies to try and further bolster support in that regard. I'd encourage councils to access that information as early as possible in the application process. Another key area that we've seen in terms of evidence is some form of site or safety audit in the area, based on direct observation. Banyule Council last year in their presentation at the forum talked about the community night walks that they did at dusk, where they did a safety audit involving a range of community representatives and having a number of different perspectives to actually physically see what the issues were in that area. Often we find those sorts of projects that have a safety audit behind it can improve having a more holistic assessment of the needs. We've seen some councils, after they've delivered projects, actually say, well, look, it would have been better to have a more substantive sort of assessment at the beginning of what the overall issues were. Good evidence also provides clear baseline information for evidence as part of evaluation. The best applications also have a very clear and convincing connection between the problem and the activities that are proposed. These applications have considered alternatives, previous evidence from projects that council may have delivered or that they're aware of from other councils, crime prevention theory, or consideration of the safer design principles. Sometimes simple but imaginative solutions can have more of an impact than more expensive solutions. The best applications also provide very clear and measurable objectives. They have a clear line of sight between what the activities are and what will be delivered, and then the short and medium term outcomes. Some councils have put in like a project logic or an investment logic approach to sort of help draw that link. The clearest applications also make it very easy to understand the scope of what's being delivered. Visual evidence through photos or through site maps that clearly demarcate the proposed activities, or if it's lighting or cameras, whatever it is, make it very easy to understand what's being delivered at the end of the day. We have an external advisory panel that has Victoria Police, the Municipal Association of Victoria, a number of other government departments and agencies on that panel, and we often bring up the maps, the photos that are part of the application to help make it clear what's actually being done. One of the other areas that we encourage is an integrated mix of activities. While we can fund CCTV or lighting alone, what we've seen is that those projects that have a mix of different activities, either through the grant request or where they're directly complementing things that Council has recently done, are more likely to be the ones that have longer term outcomes. Again, stronger applications make clear the link to relevant council plans, whether that be a community safety plan, a master plan or a lighting strategy or audit. We've seen some projects where a council has put in a project for lighting and then later on they've developed a lighting strategy that the original proposal is really a bit incompatible with, and that's led to some very significant delays and problems with the project. So where there's a clear link is a good thing that we're looking for. We know consultation and engagement is critical to support good decision making, helping to get different views to understand the problem and building ownership within the community for longer term outcomes. Good applications evidence community support well and have clear mechanisms in place for engagement to shape the final designs. This is particularly important in designing inclusive public spaces and considering some of the specific issues that women, young people and culturally diverse groups have in accessing the space and how they use it and why they don't use it. One of the key success factors that we've also seen with previous projects has been collaboration within Council, across business units, within the development of the proposal and the project itself. And this was certainly evident in presentations that we've had last year, and I believe in the presentations we'll hear from Council today. Strong applications have also seen Council make a commitment to enliven or support activity with a new or upgraded space. So some of those that are then talked about having markets in the area or events in the space. I've talked about stronger applications. Now what about some of the weaker ones? There's a number of applications where it's just not clear at all that there is a crime prevention issue or what that issue is. Basic anecdotal information may be provided. There's others where they may be able to outline some issue, but it's not clearly related to the problem, or it's excessive or disproportionate in relation to that issue. For example, an application for a large-scale CCTV system for an area where there's very scant evidence of crime. We had an application where a high proportion of the grant was towards a car park for a neighbourhood centre, and the link between the problems in the area and the solution wasn't convincing, and it did appear quite opportunistic. Another example was a project where the evidence provided from Victoria Police was that the problem was crimes were largely happening during the day, but the solution that was offered was exclusively for lighting, so it didn't really connect. Other applications contain obvious inconsistencies between the application itself and the supporting material that's provided. One example of that was a project last year where we had the only evidence of consultation they provided was a summary consultation report from a master plan, which indicated that the stakeholders there thought that lighting was sufficient and there was a concern that it would actually lead to overlighting of the area. Yet, again, the proposal was specifically for lighting. There might have been further consultation that had happened subsequently, but that wasn't made clear and it didn't connect with the evidence that they'd provided. We see applications that have been clear, there's clearly been multiple unsuccessful attempts to address an issue without taking into account learnings from the past. Last year there was an application for a proposal in a highly disadvantaged space. We were aware that there'd previously been funding from another government department 6 or 7 years ago. The project had won Urban Design Awards, yet it wasn't clear in the application what had actually gone wrong in the meantime, what were the learnings, and so that really undermined that application. Reviewing the effectiveness of projects is critical in demonstrating to government the value of continuing to fund the program. Good baseline information is an important part of this, and the better information that you have from the outset, the stronger the likelihood of demonstrating change over time. The Crime Stats Agency will talk further about the information they can provide. And as part of your application, you may also indicate further data sources that you'd like to collect and review. For funded projects, there will be an evaluation plan requirement within 3 months of being funded, and also a requirement of an evaluation report 12 months after the project works have been completed. Prior to successful projects coming on board, the Community Crime Prevention Unit will be doing further work around developing evaluation support and guidance and templates, and we will continue a practice of doing some more detailed evaluations, with council through engaging, others in the department. We have a whole range of resources on the website that I'd encourage people to look at. Presentations from today will be on the site. Presentations from previous forums on a range of topics, from CCTV, other council case studies. We have the safer design guidelines, the other lighting resources that I talked about, a number of documents specific to CCTV, and a document from the Australian Institute of Criminology on effective crime prevention interventions for implementation by local government. I'd encourage people to access those resources. Just finally, the program applications will close on the 2nd of September. We do take a consistent approach in not accepting late applications, to be fair-handed, I guess, in our approach, but also because we're really committed to turning around the outcomes as soon as we can. Applications need to be submitted online, and inquiries can be sent to that email address or through contacting our grants line. We are keen, if you've got questions, put them through to us. If you're concerned about eligibility, again, put it through to us. We can help clarify that, and we'd rather do that rather than councils wasting their time and putting in an ineligible application.
Beck Thorpe from Cardinia.
Yep.
Just wondering if there's, just about the co-contribution, if there's any flexibility when it comes to interface councils. So I know we don't qualify for the 10%, but we certainly don't have the same sort of budgets as Melbourne councils.
Yeah. At this stage, it is still 20%. And generally speaking, we've set that co-contribution at a fairly low level compared to many other infrastructure programs that are out there, like delivered by Sport and Recreation Victoria or others. And we've done that, deliberately. That may be a factor in terms of how much you can, it may be just the minimum amount, and we'd consider that in looking at the level of contribution, that different councils have different levels of capacity, but it is a minimum requirement. And as I said, half of that can be through in-kind support as well.
Just on that note, quick query, Susan Sarridge from Horsham Council.
Oh, hi, Susan.
Can council in-kind be factored into the total in-kind, or can we not include council?
You can include council in-kind, so if that's sort of staff member support, but we do say we want to see some financial contribution as well to the project. So.
Scanlon from Hobson's Bay City Council, sorry. It's probably a two-part question, but
sure.
Where the facility is, strictly speaking, not public open space, but is actually a fenced facility that primarily you need to be a member or pay a fee to attend. It's actually a state facility of which council is a committee management member. Does that meet the...
Well, the focus really is on public spaces, I guess, that are accessible, by the general public. And so we'd probably need to have a look at that in a little bit more detail with you, like outside. But the focus is very clearly on space, that are open to the general public and that anyone can use. So, there might be some issues there with that.
Paul Mars from Frankston City Council.
G'day, Paul.
We're looking at having our application directed towards refurbishment or replacement, if you like, I suppose, of CCTV camera systems which are in the Young Street Transport Hub area. Yep. Our systems we have there are getting fairly old now, and we'd see it as being part of this development. So you think that would fit in pretty well with the guidelines that you're suggesting?
Look, it's not ineligible. We'd have to look at that from a value for money point of view in terms of how long have you had those cameras in for. Generally, we'd be looking for 10-year sort of life cycle. I guess what was the functionality that you're proposing going forward? There might be some different functionality. Has council maintained those cameras and done everything that they should have? So certainly be eligible in terms of funding new or replacement cameras, but we'd need to look at that from a value for money.
That sounds fair enough. Thanks very much.
Francine from Alpine. I was just wondering what proportion of successful applications versus total applications you normally get?
It has varied. Typically, it's probably run between 25 and 40%. I think last year it was a very competitive program. We've got a little bit more money that we could allocate this year. But yeah, last year was around 30%. We sometimes have potential to top up money from other sources, but we can't guarantee that.
Thanks. Rod Gadsden, City of Melbourne, Safe City Camera Program. We're going for a small add-on to our system. Currently just one camera actually on a new bridge that they're building between Tennis Centre and Birrong Ma. So would just that small one camera application fit into the system here?
Well, we can fund one camera. I mean, there's nothing precluding that. We'd have to look at how that was fitting into, I guess, the overall plan that you've got. But there's no exclusion around that.